It's time to catch your breath. After a chaotic week 11 in Major League Rugby, we can finally take a step back and look at all that went down in week 11, including some of its top fantasy MLR performers. We also go over the waiver wire, look ahead to week 12, plus much more. The Fantasy Rucker Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 152 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in MLR. With you each and every single week, Matt Yee, Devin, Vandy, Vanderpool. I am Ryan Yee. And boys, did you get a chance to catch your breath? Because man, what a week 11 we had. It seemed like we had rugby going from the release of last week's episode all the way up until the recording of this podcast episode. It's been a wild one.
Yeah, it's I mean, what it was, we had basically 2 days off of rugby over the past week. So yeah, pretty crazy times, but hey, I'm not complaining, that's for sure. More rugby to watch, more players to see, more intel to be gathered for those fantasy managers.
Yeah, absolutely. Only 2 days off. Can't complain when you got a lot of rugby going on. Hectic week, midweek chaos, like we said last week. But hey, this is the episode where we get to take a little bit of a breather. We get to reflect on the week that was, talk a little bit about those matches that happened over the course of the weekend and the fantasy impact, of course. So, got a busy episode on this episode 152. Vandy, your Utah Warriors looking pretty good. We'll obviously get into that a little bit more. There's a little bit of Warriors hype, I think, going on for everyone out there. And I'm sure for you, even more so, Vandy, with you riding the train on how good they're looking right now.
Yeah, you know what? I've been saying it. Said we're going to be the best in the league. I think I might have spoke too early on the Shield. But you know what? You can't be disappointed with this year so far. I'm loving it. Yeah, I mean, what else do you say? I'll get into it with our game, but
there we go. Our in-house Utah Warriors fan, the team that the people picked for him 5 years into this thing, finally looks like it is paying off. But like we said, hey, jam-packed episode, lots to talk about here. We'll talk about the midweek chaos that happened, of course, last week, but more so get into those matches that happened over the course of the weekend. Got some latest news and notes, and it was a busy week of news that did happen. So we'll touch on all that, give people the update on what is going on in our Fantasy Ruckers leagues. And then I'll, of course, talk a little waiver wire, look ahead to another busy week that's to come here in week 12. Only one midweek game coming up next week on a Wednesday, but we will break those all down and then talk a little bit of betting at the end. And I think there was a pretty solid week for Vandy and I, who banked in on a cash cow that had a pretty weird line. Yeah. When you see those, you smash it and you let the cash roll in. But all right, we'll get into it. Before we do, like we say every episode, if you aren't already, follow us at the Fantasy Ruckers. Handles up above if you're watching on the YouTube video, down below in the description if you're listening on the pod at the Fantasy Ruckers. We really do appreciate it. Hit that like button, subscribe, the bell, all of that good stuff to know when we release episodes on a weekly basis. We've been having a fun time here on the Fantasy Rucker Show. And as we're getting towards the home stretch of this 2025 MLR season, it's never too late to follow along. Also, check out our Discord community. Got a fun group of people over there that love to chat, both MLR, fantasy MLR, and rugby as a whole and across the world. You can join that with the link down below. And also check out thefantasyruckers.com, the official platform for Fantasy MLR here on the Fantasy Rucker Show. Also can see all the stats that we've had so far this season if you want to dabble in some of those individual player rankings. All right, let's get into the news right away here.
News dump.
All right, it's time for our TFR news dump. And boys, let's start off with what you may have not realized was happening today at the time of the recording of this podcast. By the time this podcast is released, it has passed. But April 28th is trade deadline day, according to James Healy of MLR Stats.
It's pretty sure that's fake. That thing does not exist.
Yeah, we definitely are not prone to getting fooled by the MLR when it comes to this type of stuff. But officially, that's what it's supposed to be. So,
The trade deadline is about as real as salary cap considerations. All right.
no kidding. There you
That's what it
go.
is.
But we did have some moves that did happen with those dwindling hours of this hypothetical trade deadline
Do they
day
include
here
salary
in
cap
Major League Rugby.
considerations, Ryan?
It, of course, included salary cap considerations. I mean, what trade in Major League Rugby doesn't include salary cap considerations, right? I mean, I
True.
think it's at this
Fugazi.
point it is, yeah, exactly. But of course, the other thing that it will always include is Anthem Rugby Carolina giving away international slots
Yeah.
because that's what they
Oh,
love to do. So, a deal that was made on April 28th on trade deadline day, Anthem Rugby Carolina sends a 2025 international slot, I believe they're seventh, to San Diego for a 2025 first round pick in the upcoming MLR draft and 2026 salary cap considerations. So what does this mean? Obviously, Anthem gets a little bit more draft capital to go and hunt some of those U.S. eligible players that they may see in this upcoming MLR draft that will be happening after this season. And San Diego opening up an international slot to maybe bring in someone that we may not know about. What are your thoughts?
yeah, I don't know. Who knows? I mean, I guess Anthem get draft capital to draft a US eligible guy, and which is something that they need, and then they get capital to I don't know, pay for all those expensive domestic players, I guess.
They
Yeah.
get they get the pick and the money to pay for them.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's an all-encompassing trade. I mean, how can you not love it? You dish out a international slot and you get
I
a
feel like
player
they've
that is
they've
paid for.
they've got like 50 of those. They
Yeah,
keep
no
giving them
kidding.
away. Where do they keep pulling them from?
Yeah,
It's like a clown car.
it is. It is. It really is. A clown car filled with international slots. Either way, a whole bunch of other roster moves outside of Anthem Rugby Carolina also taking place. Not necessarily trades, but some things that we do need to catch up on that happened over the course of the past 7 days. Corey Daniel has announced, and the team has announced that he has signed an extension through 2026 with Old Glory DC, what was a tackle machine, or I should say is a tackle machine, and has led this league in the past in tackle numbers. Is going to be with Old Glory DC at least for the foreseeable future, most definitely here in the upcoming season. Good to see that. Love to keep good players around here in Major League Rugby. Alex Hernandez on a 4-week loan goes to Anthem Rugby Carolina from Chicago. He was their 2024 or one of Chicago's 2024 MLR draft picks. The front rower did appear in the match for Anthem Rugby Carolina over the past week. So Alex Hernandez now a part of that group here, at least for the next month. And then lastly, Anthem also signing a couple of U.S. eligible guys that have appeared on the U.S. Eagles extended player squad for the summer. Corbin Smith, back three player, and Tom Pittman, fly half, both signing with Anthem Rugby Carolina. So kind of the
Yeah.
typical thing that we expected here when it comes to U.S. eligible
And
guys. Don't expect any of these guys to necessarily be making any fantasy impact this season.
yeah, and that Pittman signing, I believe, is for 2026. So I guess they're already looking ahead because they've got absolutely nothing to play for the rest of the season.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll obviously get into that. It's pretty
Not even one
grim
win.
if
They don't
you're.
even want to play for one win.
If it
Yeah,
was possible, then maybe.
we'll see. Yeah, that book it bets of a 3-win line is
Brutal.
aging like milk here this season so far. Lastly, here before we get into probably the biggest news, at least for us here on the Fantasy Rucker Show, we talked about Utah making waves. A player that has been a long time Utah Warriors member is making waves over the past week. Angus McClellan joins the 100 Club, is the third player to ever do it. He follows Dylan Fawcett and JP Smith, who just recently hit that 100 mark. He's only the second team to do it with the same team, of course, joining JP Smith, who has been with the Seattle Seawolves his entire career. But he is, Angus McClellan, being the first U.S. born player to reach
Oh,
the 100 match mark. So as the MLR continues to trudge on and make a name for itself, players as well hitting these big milestones. Congratulations to Angus McClellan.
yeah, good for him. Congrats, hey, Vandy. That's
Yeah,
one of
well
your
done.
boys.
Well done. Love to see it. Good club.
There you go. And then lastly here, before we kind of shift on to the Fantasy Ruckers League update, it was announced that the 2025 Major League Rugby Championship location We know where it's happening. And drum roll, please. It is happening in, or on, I should say, on. Is it a Long Island thing? Not sure.
No, I
It
don't
is
think so.
happening in Rhode Island. Not the place that I necessarily would have picked for a MLR championship
There's
to
a
happen.
destination location.
But yeah, but there is a brand new stadium being built there. Centerville Bank Stadium is going to host, I believe, its first championship, I think, in pro sports that it will be hosting. I want to Google how many people it is able to hold, but
I think it's
nonetheless,
still under construction.
it is still under
They
construction,
are
I believe
finishing
so.
up construction on it. All I know is that one, yeah, you're asking West Coast fans to make a basically the longest trek they could possibly make
Yeah.
to the East Coast. And two, New England Free Jack fans are really hoping that the New England Free Jacks make the finals because they will be there in forces. And I believe that they have already started kind of selling out a section. I
Yes.
believe it's section
Yes.
108 if you would like to be with the degenerates of New England.
I think at the time when I was looking at tickets, I believe you can't even buy tickets in that 108 section where like it's sold
I'm
out. The
pretty
ja
sure they bought it. I'm
the
pretty sure
free
they got it all.
the Free Jacks know how to the fan base knows how to travel, and I know a handful of both people who are in our fantasy Ruckers leagues, people that are friends of the show, all that good stuff are definitely a part of that wave, and they're going to be there in full force. Yeah, it's going to feel like a home game for the New England Free
Literally.
Jacks if they do make the final. Again, to Matthew's sentiment. From a growing perspective, I'm not too sure this would have been the place I would have picked. I thought, 2 years ago, Chicago was such a perfect spot because it was kind of smack dab in the middle, kind of west, east could both make it. Last year, San Diego, tough, obviously, for the East Coast fans to get out there. So I guess they're doing the East Coast a solid this year and kind of moving it towards the other side. Just hard to get kind of a wide variety of fans to get out there. But nonetheless, it's exciting that it's a new stadium and it hosts around 10,500 people. So we'll see how much they can fill that out. But yeah, it should be exciting. Now, where that lends to is that we can't release and reveal too much information yet. But because it is on the East Coast, hey, the Fantasy Ruckers, we're not too far away from where we're based out of. So
Debatable.
there, yeah, for within plus or minus 12 hours of traveling distance. Either way, there is some things in the works. I can't reveal too much. There are some things in the works that is very exciting here for the Fantasy Ruckers to possibly make an appearance out in Rhode Island. So keep an eye out for that, and if you're a Fantasy Ruckers community member, if you are someone that likes to follow along the show, or hey, if you just love fantasy MLR, or just love rugby as a whole, and love to hear us chat, there might be a fun opportunity for people out there to kind of get together. We'd love to meet some of you people. So stay
Get
tuned.
together and get
More
licked up.
more information to come down the line here. But yeah, it would be exciting for us. It would be our first championship final to get to, and we are sure trying hard to make it all work. So stay tuned for that. All
How
right.
electric,
Let
Vandy, if Utah was in there, eh? Ooh.
Oh my.
Don't
You
get
know what?
ahead of,
I'll
don't
fill
get
out a
ahead of
whole
yourself.
section.
Don't get ahead of yourself.
I'll fill out the whole section myself.
yeah, no kidding at all. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Fantasy Ruckers leagues that happened over the course of this past week.
Always impressive.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
All right, hear ye, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yi with a Fantasy Ruckers leagues update. And let's start off with the weekly challenge like we do each and every week. And Matt, looks like you found yourself back near the top. You did get trumped by our very own Unforgiven Potato, who is
Don't matter.
also a commissioner in one of our leagues. So congratulations to him. 47.2 fantasy points for him this week. Maddie, you were just behind at 46. But hey, you're a Supreme Commissioner Yi. Finishing in third this week, Maddie, only 2 points behind you. We've now gone up to the 10th spot, looking to get into those single digits on the season.
Yeah, keep
Not too
trying,
bad.
buddy.
Not too
Hey,
bad. We're
way
doing
to
that.
go,
Vandy, we
kiddo.
don't need to talk about you much. 10th, but it's okay. We're
Consistency.
kind of back to that realm where consistency is key.
Yeah, it don't matter though. The boys are buzzing in the listener league. Doesn't matter. I mean, look at us. Look at us in the listener league, rounding out that number 2, number 3, number 4 spots. in the league.
Love
As
to see it.
you know, yours truly is number two, clearly.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah,
yeah,
tough week. I
It,
should be too, but tough week.
boys are
it's
buzzing.
okay. It's okay. It would have made things hella interesting, Vandy, if you had taken down the reigning leader in our listening league. But hey, we
Yeah,
also got to
well,
give a shout to the Fantasy Ruckers League. The boys, our team, second place right now, just behind defending champion John Fitzpatrick of Rugby Morning. Uh the what did we say at the beginning of the year? Right? We were like the Power Rangers when you came together and formed the big like Megatron. Like it's
Oh
starting to
yeah,
come
we were
together
saying. I
here.
do
yeah,
remember
we did. Yeah, I
Vandy.
remember that now.
Yeah, you said Vandy was the big club that was hanging between the.
I don't remember that,
Oh,
but
you
either
said
way,
that. You said that.
it seems to be
I think I
working.
remember that actually.
It
Yeah,
seems to
yeah.
be it seems to be whatever we did and whatever
The
formation that
Black
we did,
Ranger.
big club, the head, the whatever. We seem to be working here, and it's full steam ahead here for the Fantasy Ruckers boys. Here. Again, been having lots of fun here this season so far. If you want to try the weekly challenge, never too late to try. That's why we have it. It's a week to week fantasy format. Sign up, link down below, put together that 5-person lineup with the $15 budget and partake and dabble in a little bit of fantasy MLR. For all of our Fantasy Ruckers League members in those season long leagues, make sure you check those eligibilities. And hey, we do have another week, like I mentioned at the top of the show, of midweek matches. We do have one, like I mentioned, Wednesday match. That one will not count. The one between the Utah Warriors and San Diego Legion will not count for its fantasy purposes. But both teams do have a game later in that week. So fantasy wise, you're not losing out. The one team that actually is on bye is Anthem Rugby Carolina, which I don't think a lot of people will be missing. All right. You guys ready to talk about the week that was?
Yes,
Let's
sir.
do it.
All right, let's do it.
Quick tap recap.
All right, time for our week 11 quick tap recap here. Had a whole slew of matches, obviously. We reacted and tried to preview last week's Tuesday, Wednesday matches. And this one, because of fantasy purposes, we're going to really focus on the weekend matches. So technically, last week for fantasy managers on bye was the New England Free Jacks. They did not have a weekend game. Therefore, they did not have players that made a fantasy impact. But we will talk about some of these players coming up in our waiver wire segment. And of course, in the preview of the week 12 that is to come. So I guess I will allow you guys though. Let's get a quick reaction. Obviously, LA or New England back at top of the standings here, beating LA, and then it was obviously Seattle absolutely trouncing Anthem Rugby Carolina in what was just an absolute slaughter. Quick
All,
reactions from the
all,
midweek matches.
I mean, all I'll say is that I think every week we continued, and even this weekend too, we're continuing to be surprised by the teams. And and you can tell with our picks, like that LA New England, we keep getting surprised. Teams keep showing up when we don't think they're going to show up. And it's a battle. And we've seen this every weekend and it continues.
It really is I know it's a cliche to say, but it's really any given week. You know what I mean? Like any team outside of maybe Anthem Rugby Carolina can win this can win a match on any given day. I mean, it is tight. Even Western Conference, Eastern Conference, both of them. New England somehow finds its way back. The standings leading by 1 point with
Yeah.
that victory over LA.
Yeah.
And
The
Houston or
only
the Western. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say the only thing I'll add is that it was nice to see some newer players come in. And it was nice to just get seeing guys like Vogan Isaacs, guys like
Hmm. Hmm.
Dan Hollinshead, guys like trying to think who on New England side came in. But yeah, it was great to see those guys come in and you get to see the kind of play and it gives you a little preview of what you could see on the weekends. I'm a little surprised that there's not as much kind of variation or impact on the weekend play, which is great for fantasy managers. And
Yes.
as we get into these weekend games, we'll see exactly that. I mean, all the usuals were in there. All the usuals
Hmm.
were playing pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's get right into it then, guys. It started off, at least from the weekend standpoint, on Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. RFCLA travels back to the West Coast to host the San Diego Legion.
County
And in
Cup.
what was, in my opinion, what a way to kick off the weekend and probably
Yeah.
the most exciting matchup of the weekend, back and forth. I believe it was tied at half, was it not? Or at least it was damn close at
It was
half
pretty close. Yeah.
and San Diego ends up edging it at the end by 2 points here. They hang on a missed conversion by Reese McDonald there, strips away the potential tie for LA. But San Diego bounces back here in a stretch where they've struggled to score points and have lost because of it. And in this one, on a team that's very electric and knows how to score points on the counter end in RFCLA, they show up and win this one by 2 in a very fun matchup.
Yeah, and just before we get in the game, I mean, shout out to the winner of the Cali Cup, San Diego, but also shout out to Japan. This was a double header game where Japan
Hmm.
versus USA women's team played directly after the game, and Japan takes their first victory over the US women's rugby team ever. So shout out
Wow.
to them. But yeah, what a game. I mean, what a way to start the weekend. High scoring. I think you kind of have to expect that when guys are playing LA now. Like LA is just defensively not, they just haven't shown that they're going to be as good, but they will run it down your throat and play and put up a lot of points. And we love that as fantasy managers. One guy I just had to shout out. I mean, Brad Wilkin just seemed like he was
Hmm.
absolutely everywhere in this game, and he was kissed with some extra hot fire in this game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And these are the funds, I guess the way I can put it, and Vandy, you know these types of games when it comes to fantasy, like a fantasy manager's paradise, right? Like you go down the
Oh,
list, double digit performances by 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13
Oh, you can
players,
count.
right?
mans can count.
Mans can count, and we love seeing that, and that is highlighted by Brad Wilkin, Maddie, who is our back row team of the week player, 23.5 fantasy points in this one, 2 tries, 23 tackles, the fourth time this year that Brad Wilkin has surpassed the
Beast.
20 tackle mark, which is insane. He has a season high in tries and meters gained in the full 80 that he played. This is what you drafted Brad Wilkin for. The fact that it looks like there is at least one league that doesn't have Brad Wilkin owned because he's only
Crazy.
86% owned is a crime.
That is
But
criminal.
a
That's
two-try
one.
performance, 23.5. I mean, electric there. A couple other performances to mention. Another team of the week honoree to dish out. Ben Sugars of LA, 12.3 fantasy points there. And then our second row team of the week, Jed Holloway at
What a
18.6, who
beast.
had 2 tries himself. Blocked kick, if I'm remembering
Yes.
correctly.
Yeah, sure
And
did.
then sneaks that one there in as well. We actually had 2 block kicks this weekend, which was good to see. That's basically how locks get their tries, right? A 9 that tries
Oh,
to get fancy there with the box kick takes a little bit too long, and you got a guy that is
well,
as tall as Jed Holloway, or who we allude to, Nathan Denhoat, gets his hands on it and free reign to the try zone.
I mean, I think, yeah, like that's perfect. But this one, I mean, he came off the line and got Reese McDonald in the pocket. So good on him. He's got some pace on those giraffe legs. So good on him. But yeah, I mean, one takeaway for me, just the back row from LA outside of Semi, like one, we don't trust Semi anymore, fantasy wise. Just doesn't look good enough. He's not going to play 80. He just doesn't look fit. Um, and I mean, Ed Timpson, Tim Anstey, Ben Houston just going to work for LA.
Yeah, no, and I think the both 3 guys in the top 5 of scorers in this game. 16.7 for Ed Timpson, 15 fantasy points for Tim Anstey, and 14.4
And
for Ben Houston.
correction there. Timancy did start in the second row of this game, but still, statement still stands. Semi didn't
Yes.
play the full game. Semi is to not be trusted fantasy wise.
Yeah.
I thought he might have had a game too after he played on Tuesday or Wednesday there. He
Yeah,
played great then, but yeah.
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 I mean, hey,
8.8
he put
fan.
up. Yeah, I was gonna say he put up 8.8 fantasy points, right? Like, he still played well, still played decent. Just can we expect that when he's playing 60 minutes?
Rostered in 57% of leagues. Is he someone that if you have the space, you're at least holding him on your bench?
Vandy.
I
Back to
dropped
back
him weeks
semi
ago.
back-to-back Semi
There you
Kunatani
go.
sightings. Maybe him getting subbed off at the 60-minute mark is in part due to him playing on Tuesday and
True.
playing the full 80 on Tuesday, which again, when he played the full 80, he scored 22.6 fantasy points in a classic Semi Kunatani performance with 98 meters gained, a try assist, and 11 tackles.
True.
Um, what do we do there? So in my opinion, if you have the space, he's rostered in just above 50% of leagues, so he could be available. maybe you just hold on to him. He would be a guy like if I'm at the top of my standings here and I have space to put him, like throw him at the edge of your bench. He could be a league winner, right? Like
Okay.
if for some reason he hits like conditioning and he's great to go and back-to-back starts for the first time in this season and he just starts rolling these performances together, he could get that value of or see he's not going to hit the value of you picking him first overall, but he might hit that threshold of what you expect from a week to week basis from a first round pick, if that makes sense.
So look at some available. Just play the game real quick for back rows. Reichert
Oh
Hadding's there.
no.
McLean Jones there. Mason
Like
Fleck.
I would have Semi
So
Kunatani over Reeker.
I mean,
Really?
to
Reichert,
me,
just to argue, Reichert's put up 10, 13, 21. And I
I
guess
know.
one
yeah.
last game.
To me, it's the upside. Like, I don't
Mhm.
think that you look at all those other guys, and frankly, at this point, most teams have two starting back rowers, and that
Yeah.
they're pretty comfortable playing with. At this point, you're making pickups to kind of fill roster spots and kind of hope for a huge upside, and maybe get a guy who's going to be a playoff play or a late season play. And to me, Kunatani gives that. He's
That's
shown
top
enough to
guy.
be like there's a possibility that he puts up 20 like he did in the
Yeah.
midweek game, right? So that's the only thing that for me puts him over some of these guys that have been sitting in the waiver wire for quite a long time.
Let's take a temperature test now, kind of going from a team perspective. Again, I think my advice with Kunatani, if you have the space, take a flyer. Might be those league winner. He is definitely getting hotter and hotter as the season goes on. But now that we are heading into round 12, when you look at San Diego, when you look at RFCLA, sitting third and fourth respectively in the Western Conference, where is your mind at in terms of where RFCLA sits and where San Diego Legion sits at? Or who are you higher on right now in the season?
I mean, hard not to go with LA. I know that they lost, but
Back to
it's
back.
just hard. Yeah, but I mean, it's hard. Like San Diego has just come off 4, 5 losses in a row,
Yeah.
and it's kind of difficult. And LA has looked really good in the last few weeks, even though they lost, I guess, the last two. But I still feel pretty good with LA.
Yeah. I mean, last two as well, I believe by one score or less, right?
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah.
just they're hanging in there and it's interesting to see. So we'll see. Again, it's a tight season. All right, let's go on to the next matchup here. The Houston Sabercats hosting Old Glory DC in a match that I think Houston largely dominated. Very excited to see Houston in terms of how dynamic they were playing. Again, we've talked about it this year. They do look a lot more dynamic than they have in the past in terms of when you compare to this team to last year's team, which definitely plays a role and is a feel good thing for fantasy managers. In terms of that style and for points to be available, and they take care of business. 48 to 27 win over the Houston over Old Glory DC for Houston.
Yeah, just I mean, yeah, just looked like Houston pretty much dominated most of that game. I think, but didn't they go into half? Like Old Glory was up for a little bit, no? Or was I am I remembering incorrectly?
I don't think so. I do not think so. They may have pulled in tighter, but I don't think that Old Glory DC was leading.
Yeah,
Maybe
fair enough.
early, but
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, Houston, man. They come out to play. I actually really liked the way that Max Schumacher looked. I mean, he had some nifty little runs there, some nifty little blind breaks. He looked light on his feet. And I mean, maybe we'll get into this in the waiver wire, but I did hear on the broadcast that Drew Wild is currently out injured, which means that makes a little way for Max Schumacher.
yeah. And we know that Davy Kutzer is dealing with something when it comes
Yeah,
to
what's that,
his
Yeah,
man?
what is it, Ryan? What's he
availability.
dealing with
Yeah,
again?
tell us more.
He hasn't played. I mean, there's nothing official announced. I cannot speculate,
The
but he has
announcer, the announcer
Where's your
did say
sources?
Jason Robertson out for the year. I did not hear anything about Davy Coates.
no. But we
Well,
said
Ryan
that
said it.
I
What's
don't.
this?
I'm just saying. If you hopped on the advice that I gave you a couple weeks back when
You'd
I
be
was
right
sharing
so
some things,
far. You'd be
I've been
right.
right so far. I've been right so far. So there is pathways. So this means, and we'll talk more about it, like Maddie mentioned in the waiver wire segment, but pathways for AJ Alatimu, pathways for Max Schumacher to have more of a fantasy contribution. But even with, I guess, an injury riddled lineup with a couple of their bigger stars, Houston still looks good. And their fly half guy that stepped in, AJ Alatimu, our fly half team of the week,
We're good.
17.3 fantasy points, and his best by far showing of the year. Hadn't had even a close matchup since round 3 when he started out fly half and got 8.1 fantasy points. He had 3 conversion kicks, 2 penalty kicks, finally looking pretty decent at that boot, and the success rate from there. But he adds 2 try assists, a try as well, in that full 80. I mean, AJ Alatimu, this is what we'd like to see. And this is a guy I think we forget about, right? Like when he was on Seattle, like this guy was electric, right? Like this was
Yep,
a guy that like was a fantasy king. And I'm not saying that that's what you're going to get this season. And I wouldn't expect that. But this is the potential that you can have here when AJ Alatimu has a game like this. This was a glimpse of what we saw 2 years ago, right? When
for
he was on
sure.
Seattle.
For sure. And I think what we also saw was just kind of Old Glory DC's fate here, right?
Mhm.
Like we're kind of seeing the way like Old Glory DC just being dominated for majority of this game. And we're just seeing the fate without Damian Hoyland, without Jason Robertson. It's going to be a rough rest of the season for this squad, and you can kind of see it looming over them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other Houston guys to of note from a fantasy sense, Jeremy Misala get say
Just
it for
call him
me.
the missile. You just got to call him the missile
I
Okay.
now.
wanted to shout him out, but I couldn't figure out his last name.
Yeah. Misala Agalu.
Yeah, yeah. I think you just got to go with
Dude, you hear it on the
Stanfield and just
broadcast,
call
and
him.
then you come on here and you're like, Missy baby, boo.
Yeah. All right. Well, the
Yeah,
missile, Jeremy, the missile, 15.4 fantasy points and 99 meters gained and a try assist there. Nathan Denholt with the block kick that he had, leading to a 2 try performance, 6 tackles to add to that, gives him 14.6 fantasy points for his best showing of the year so far. And then Maddie mentioned Max Schumacher, who had 11.7 with a try and 44 meters gained. On the Old Glory DC side of things, Fanana Banana. Jamison Fa'anana Schultz back in the lineup there. No, we did not see a Colin Gross, who we've been very high on going on. So obviously, Fa'anana Schultz going back in that lineup, 10.6 for him, with the try that he scored, a largely try-dependent performance. And really our only other or was our only double-digit Old Glory DC player this week. Some other guys, we talked about Jason Emery last week on the show at the fly half duties. He scored 7.8, so kind of left wanting for fantasy managers. But again, to slot a guy at the fly half position who's going to kick 3 conversion kicks and 2 penalty kicks in a match, you can't really ask for more from that in that.
yeah, for sure.
All right, let's move on to the third matchup of the weekend. Utah Warriors, Chicago Hounds. Another very, very fun match to watch. And again, it's not a
Boom.
coincidence that these includes teams more so on the Utah side of things that are just electric from the offensive standpoint. Chicago up 31-12 at the half.
Mm-hmm.
And Utah says, uh-uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh-uh. The
Mm-hmm.
West is the best coast. The West Coast is the best coast. And we're going to make a comeback here and take this one in the end, 41-31. Utah now sits second in the West with a game in hand over the Houston Sabercats with just
1
1 point
point
behind.
behind, baby.
1 point behind.
Andy,
What are you
break
looking
it
for?
down for us, buddy.
What are you looking for a breakdown? You
Yeah,
want a
Break it
everyone.
down
breakdown? Look
for
at that
us.
second half of rugby. Okay, that is
Hey,
gorgeous.
it
Okay,
was.
you know what?
I
I
got
thought it was gonna. Joe Mono has this feel where before 5 minutes he's getting a try. There's a
worth
fifty
every
percent
penny.
chance. If I could bet on that, I would. I'd be slamming it every week. Guy's electric, takes a knock. We do absolutely nothing with the red card. I think Lance Williams gets a yellow. I'm yelling at the TV at that point. We continue to
Vandy,
suck at the
Vandy,
first half.
before you move on, I gotta ask you, like, what happened? Because it felt like Chicago dominated with a man down for 20 minutes.
Dominated. That
Like, how does that, like, yeah,
held us in our end for 20 minutes. I mean,
crazy.
except for I think we got a couple box kicks out, but I mean,
Yeah,
other
and
than
I mean,
that,
but you watch that and you think this is going to be pretty rough for Utah for the rest of this game. But man, I mean, you continue with that. I just wanted to call that
you
out
know
there.
what? Honestly, it was feeling pretty bad after that red. After we did absolutely nothing, got scored on. I think they got a penalty kick and a try during the red, so it was pretty bad. Maybe even 2. I can't remember. But I mean, that second half, it was just guys breaking the line. Joel Mono I mean, he looked great. D'Angelo Luila had a nice couple, moves in there. Nick Ben had a good game too. Jordan Trainer. I mean, these boys were
Yeah.
playing the second half.
Yeah. And I mean, I think Will Hooley said it great on the broadcast. It's just like Utah just needed to get the ball out wide. They didn't need to
Yep.
play inside. They didn't need to play with Chicago. All they
Mhm.
had to do was play their game and get the ball in the hands of their best asset, and that's
Yep.
the back three for them.
Yep.
You look at Nick Ben, Vandy, you said it, Jordan Trainer, Joe Mono. These guys are absolute weapons, and every time they touch the ball, they're making something happen. And man, I gotta call out just like the Joel Hodgson, D'Angelo Leula
Oh,
combo
dude.
just continues to impress. It
And
continues to impress.
what a dart by Hodgson at the end. I don't even know how
Yeah,
they choose who kicks those, but it seems from long range penalty kicks, they've been going with Hodgson more, and I mean, that was beauty
yeah,
from deep
yeah.
too.
I know recency bias is a big thing, obviously. But if you had to put your money on it right now, it feels like this is a preview of the MLR championship,
Could be.
right?
Could be.
Like, I mean, you're
I think
looking at
New England's got an argument there, and
New
obviously
England does have an argument,
Yeah.
right? But it feels like you got some really good rugby in this one. Obviously, mistakes made on both sides of
Oh
it,
yeah.
especially with some those times with the cards. But yeah, I mean, Utah looks on fire right now. And Matt, you mentioned Joe Mono. Like, if I
Worth
told
every
you,
penny.
yeah,
All
and for
41
those
bucks.
of you,
I wish I
If you
spent
listen to
more.
me, you wouldn't have had to spend a penny on him.
for those
I
of you,
wish I
yes,
spent more.
that is true. And for those of you who are just tuning in, Maddie's, for some reason, Joe Mono was available on our waiver wire. And he at the time says there's not enough money that you could spend on Joe Mono to pick him up. He drops $41. After the $41 drop, he goes 4 straight weeks with double or single digit fantasy
Don't matter.
performances. From then, though, round 9 on, 15.7, 2 tries. 14.7, 1 try, 27.2 in his most recent game.
Team of
Third
the week.
3 try game. Second 3 try performance this season. This
Beast.
guy now has 11 tries on the season, which
Yep.
I believe
Leads the league.
is, I want to pull it up right now,
Yeah,
is
you don't have to pull it up. He's spanking the
the
rest of
try
the league in
leader
terms of
by
tries.
4. And if I told you at the beginning of the year that Joe Mono was going to be your fantasy MLR player number 1,
You didn't
maybe a
have to.
season too late when Joe Mono was consensusly drafted first overall in 2024,
You
in
didn't have to.
2025, he's saying, hey, you just need to wait a little bit. You just need to wait. I
Yes,
got you.
sir.
And he's got you this season, and especially in round 11.
Yeah, you know
You got
what?
that right.
If only
Yeah.
somebody was saying that he was going to be
It's true. I pull up the
definitely.
tape. Vandy, you were saying it. You were saying it. You were
Why
saying
don't you
it. And
pick him
again,
then,
yeah, to
coward?
Maddie's point,
Because I had Trainer at that point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You didn't
either
had a
believe
way.
your own
full
words. Actions speak louder than words, Fandy.
brother. They get 15 roster
What?
spots. I got
What?
6 Utah Warriors right now. Okay, I don't want to hear about who I should be spreading my allegiance
Hey,
on.
I was willing to drop a guy for him and spend the dough. So,
Yeah, well, you know what? I got to share the wealth. I'm just happy that you know what? I wanted to make sure one of you guys got mono so you could experience this ride with me. So you
There
can
you
watch
go.
Utah football.
You're right.
You can be like,
I
God
appreciate
damn.
the generosity
Yeah,
and
you're
your
welcome.
charitable donation.
You're welcome. You know, it's kind of like when you
Uh,
shout out these guys' names and then they do well, and you're like, I told you. I don't know why you don't listen to me. This is my one.
That's why I shout out 50 names and I just hit
Yeah,
on
and see,
3
this
of
is
them.
my one, all right? And I'm just going to keep riding.
I'll finish off by saying yes, like Maddie mentioned, back 3 team of the week and our fantasy player of the week.
Air
And
cannon, ready?
11 weeks into this is our fantasy MLR
How many tries
player
was it?
3.
number 1. 1, 2, 3, exactly. Holy
Yeah, but
moly, Joe Mono. Holy
before
moly, Joe
we move
Mono.
on to
That's
the
it.
next game, Ryan, you got to call out Nick Ben and Jordan Trainer. You got to call out the whole
Yes.
back 3.
Yes. Yeah,
Thank you.
they also
thank you.
did very well. Jordan Trainer getting a solid double-digit fantasy point performance. When it comes to Jordan Trainer, it really just feels like
Consistent.
consistency.
Yep.
Like Just
every
every
week.
week, you're going to get a double-digit fantasy point performance. He hasn't ran less than 50 meters gained in a game so far this year. I mean, he has 4 tries himself, and he's just very involved. He's gone 4 straight rounds now where he has at least 1 try assist. Like, he's involved in that offense, and he moves the ball well at that fullback position. 13.9 this past week. Nick Ben, 11.1 with the try he scored. And then our center team of the week, kind of a down week for centers this week.
Yeah,
D'Angelo Le'uila, 12.9 fantasy points. Obviously, a lot of that in part due to him kicking 4 conversion kicks. But hey,
whatever.
you got to give the credit where the credit's due.
You know what? He had
Yes,
some
sir.
big boy runs too, though.
He did.
Oh, that one try, the one try.
Get off
Which
me,
one?
little boys! Get
Yeah,
off me!
yeah. It's he's a big man.
That's a big man pajama. You know what? We got some beef on that team. That is some beef eating boys, man. I tell you. Like,
Um,
catch those guys out at all you can eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're running the place out of business, is what's happening if that's the case at an all-you-can-eat establishment. On the Chicago side of things, McLean Jones, only notable one, 12.7 fantasy points. I think what I'm starting to learn here with his two try performance is the way that Chicago plays is just not very translatable to fantasy MLR. They're a good team, obviously fell short in this
Yeah.
one, but you're just not getting a lot of fantasy points from this squad. So take that for what you will. On the Utah side, just to wrap up this game, we did see a Lance Williams sighting, which is exciting because obviously he was very, very
And
But
fantasy
hey, good to
relevant in the
see him.
got a
past.
Good to
yellow
see him.
on par.
Did get a yellow.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
that is
On
true.
brand, baby.
All right, 2 more matches to break down, both of them happening on Sunday. Let's move on to the NOLA Gold, putting up a scorching 44 points
Big one.
against the Seattle Seawolves, who fall short in this one by 8 points, fall 44 to 36. NOLA, they seem to be clicking right now and seem to be putting up some pretty big boy points here in this week 11.
Yeah. I mean, no, I mean, coming together at the perfect time. I think they finally have paired up Ruben DeHaas with Dorian Jones, and it got
Hmm.
him away from needing to have Ruben DeHaas with Luke Carty. That's definitely helped. Um, and yeah, I think they've just kind of found what their lineup is supposed to look like, and they found the guys that they want to be in there. Guys are coming to form. JP Duplessis again drives this team forward and continues to be the winning factor and the X factor of this team. When he does well, the team does well, and he does it again with another double-digit performance fantasy wise, and making another impact.
Yeah. Um, NOLA. I mean, we talked about it. I think they moved up to third place now in the Eastern Conference, and they're really vying to make a name for themselves. After what was probably a pretty abysmal start of the year, but it seems like to Maddie's point, they've figured it out here, and with how close the MLR is, you have that time to do that, and it seems like they're clicking at the right time. Maddie mentioned Jonah Moe. Um,
Yeah,
he would have been our
beast.
back row team of the week. 21.7 fantasy points. I believe he's the best back rower so far this year. Might be the best forward this year. 92 meters gained, 2 tries in this one for his fifth of the year, 10 tackles as well on top of that. Um, yeah, he is the heart and soul and the engine of this team. Other guys, Aiden King, 12.2 fantasy
Consistent.
points. Consistent. I'll talk about him more coming up in the waiver wire segment. I feel like he's a guy that we talk about every week in our waiver wire segment just because
People don't
people
listen
are
to
not
us.
listening to us. And I will say, we've mentioned JP Duplessis in this one, who is starting to become a little bit more like old school JP Duplessis, who now has 3 of the past 4 matches in double-digit points, and just falling short on that in round 10 at 9.6. Double-digit tackles in this one with 2 breakdown steals. But Isaac Tutamaki, I'll talk about him more in the waiver wire segment. He's been a guy that's benefiting from the revamped and
Yep.
reemergence of the NOLA Gold, who've now had 3 straight
Well,
double-digit performances,
he's
3 straight weeks with tries.
he's benefiting from JP Duplessis being back in form because now guys have to focus on both of them. But a guy that when you talk about being the guy of old and being kind of vintage, Duncan Matthews, as we move over
Hmm.
to the Seattle side, Duncan Matthews brings out another vintage performance from his side. 135 meters gained for him, and that's 2 weeks in a row with double-digit performances, I believe. Um,
4 weeks in a
4
row.
weeks in a row, five
4 weeks
weeks.
in a row, double the I think what you're looking for, Maddie. 2 weeks in a row that he's hit triple digit meters gain.
Yes,
Woo!
and I mean that's the Duncan Matthews that we remember. That's the Duncan Matthews that's being drafted in the first 3 rounds in the past years. Um, and he's 0% owned. So we are definitely going to get to him in the waiver wire. So yeah, love to see that. I was just having a blast seeing a guy that I used to have consistently on my squad doing well. And he's going to be back
Eddie
in my squad
Fouché,
again.
Did he
Eddie
play
Fouché
wing
off.
last year? Or was he
No,
15?
he was 15, but he was just out a lot of it. Yeah, he was just out a lot. And Eddie Fouché, Ryan, we say Fouché. Apparently, the announcers say Fushia. I don't know where they get that. I see a CH and an E, not a CH and a IE, or an IEA. Not sure where they get that, but yeah, Fouché off the bench.
Looks
Big
not too
game.
bad. Not too bad. Devin Short with a very try-dependent performance to round it out, 12.3 for
Yeah,
him with a try who he turned on the Jets on that try.
he
That's all I'll
did.
say.
No cornrows means he scores.
Yeah, there you go. All right, last game of the week, 31-5 victory of the Miami Sharks over Anthem Rugby Carolina.
What are we supposed to
Um,
do? How am I supposed to pick him again? Like I can't. Nobody can pick him again. Like now, you look dumb if you pick them ever again.
They came
it's
close last time against Miami and then no.
yeah,
Miami just said
it's
no. Like they got Videla back, and Videla was like, sorry, boys, I'm gonna put this team on my back, and we're just gonna take it."
they're not winning a game this year, are they?
No.
No, they're not. They're not. And I hate to break it to you, but they're not.
That's tough. I mean, there's really not much to break. It was Miami dominance from start to finish. Don't need to spend too much time on this one. It kind of is reflected in the fantasy numbers when the top 5 fantasy players from this match were all Miami guys. Manuel
Yeah, but
Ardeo somehow racked up 6 breakdown steals.
well, that's what he does. That's why
That's
you
what it
have
is.
him. And
17.6 fantasy points for him. Yeah.
I mean, we called out the Tomases last week,
Mm-hmm.
and the Tomas duo, the two Mosses,
Kicking
I
some
the
mean,
two
ass.
Mosses, the two Mosses, Kubia and Kubeli, Kubisha and Kubeli, come in with 11.4 and 11.1 fantasy points.
both,
Just
both with accents. So I think accents means more fantasy points there.
Is that how that works?
I think so.
Tomas.
Tomas Kubisha and Kubeli.
Neither of you guys picking up on my dad jokes. It's fine.
No, I think we got it.
Two
Or just
Moss.
skips
That
it
one we
anymore.
got it.
Two Moss. Two.
Wait.
Two
What?
Moss.
One more time. One more time.
Two Moss. You know what that's
How many
also
mosses?
in
How many
Spanish?
mosses?
Two more.
I
Two
thought they
more of
had
them.
I thought they had 5.
Yeah, they do. but these are the ones that showed up fantasy wise.
Yeah,
But Santiago
11.
Videla, coming back in
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm. 11.1 and 11.4 for Kubeli and Kubisha in this one. Yeah, Videla 14.7 in his return to the lineup. The first time we've seen him since round 5. 14.7. Kind of just, that's what Videla does, right? When he's in the lineup, I mean, he's an electric player. And I think that's why he's still 86% owned in leagues, because they know that this is what they're going to get, even though we didn't know what he was dealing with or whatever. So great to see him back. Marcos Young, 12.2 to
Good
round
game.
out the top 5 Miami guys as well. Anthem Rugby Carolina side of things, Cliven Laubser at the fly half position, 73 meters gained. He's a solid player, but just really Anthem's just struggling right now. Connor Mooneyham, 10.9 for him this past week as well with the 66 meters gain. Anything else you really need to talk about in this one?
Anthem stinks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
Pat.
We mentioned it. There are some players that are available for you coming up this week 12. So let's chat a little bit here about people you need to look out for here on the waiver wire.
Waiver Wire Breakdown.
All right, a week 12 waiver wire breakdown. Talk about some people that you should be looking out for on the waiver wire, and some people maybe that you should be looking at your lineup and saying, hey, it's time to cut this guy. So let's play the fun game of drop or
I hate
not.
this game.
You don't like this game? Well, we're playing.
I like it.
Dan Creel.
Ooh. These ones hurt, man.
It does hurt.
When you
Because
ask
Dan
Why?
Creel.
Because he's a big name.
Yeah, that's exactly why.
I think
What's
it's
the
time.
answer?
I think
It's
it's time. I think it's time.
He hasn't
No.
even given me a double digit yet.
I mean, what do you? Yeah, and like, there's so many guys available in the waiver wire. Like, as we get into the centers, like you just look at the center position, and you have guys like Isaac Tutamaki, who's having a better year. You have Matthias Jensen, who wasn't in the lineup last week, but is having a better year. Toa Tasi, yes, 57% owned, but still, again, a better year and just scoring more. You got guys like Wayne Vanderbank, Tavit Petty, who are just simply
And it
playing better and
and it
just
feels like
doing
a
more.
different Seattle team too. Like, than it was
It
even
does.
last year.
Yeah, I agree. I agree for sure.
We talked about Semi Kunatani. We talked about Riekert Hatting. Um, Junior Goffa.
That one hurts too.
No, you can't drop them.
Can't drop him. Has
Yeah.
only one game this season so far where he's hit the double-digit mark. Now, mind
Well,
you, it
I
was one
lied.
that was
If you're
I was
gonna
gonna say it's
drop
basically the
Creel,
same scenario, but he's got one outlier.
I just think it's hard. Like, how are you supposed to trust this?
Play
And
Anthem players. How can you
and
play an
yeah.
Anthem player right now and feel good?
Well, this offense feels different than last year. Like last year, you felt like they had some electricity at times and they were fun to watch. And this year, it's just not necessarily the same situation. And you can see that a lot with their scoring. Like you can see that a lot with their backline scoring, and it's just tough. Like,
Well,
is it
and
time
then
to
and then
drop them?
they let
Maybe.
out some wild lineups sometimes too that just don't even make sense.
Yeah, I
Nate
agree.
Oxberger.
Yeah, drop him.
Yeah,
He just got
I
a
dropped
red.
them last week.
If that red wasn't assigned to drop him, you drop him.
Yeah,
Dylan Nell.
oh, that
Oh,
hurts.
Vandy.
That
Doesn't
hurts.
that one hurt? I love Dylan now.
See, and it's tough because Utah's the team you want to have a chunk of, but I don't
But
I
you
think
know.
you
look at
hold.
the
I think you
you
hold Dylan Nell. His
I don't
tackle
know.
numbers.
I mean, yes, the tackle numbers are
It,
good, but I'm also looking at who else is available. Like
he's just not going to give you the tries.
Dylan Neller, Aiden King. Like I'm going Aiden
Yeah,
King at
true.
this point,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
It's just unfortunate that the Utah back row is just not a staple of kind of who they are and how they're going to play.
yeah.
It's the back line that's a staple of who's going to get the fantasy points, and you can see that. Like you even look at a guy like Frank Lahore of like in comparison, yes, he's having a great year, but in comparison to last year,
Not sure.
he's not having as good of a year, and that's
Yeah.
simply just because of the way that Utah's playing.
And if Liam Coltman's in, then that ball runs through him.
Yeah.
He's getting the
Yeah.
tries. He's punching it in.
That's the only time where they really drive it through their forwards is through the maul. And it's
Yeah.
just not where the back row or Dylan Nell or anybody else is going to shine outside of Coltman. And you saw it this weekend too, like Vugakato, you saw
Mhm.
Bradford,
Yeah.
both of those guys getting a chance to score, both of them pretty much off of mauls.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yep. No. It's crazy to think that that's where we've landed with some of those names. Not what I
It's
would have
crazy.
predicted here at the start of the season.
Welcome to MLR or fantasy MLR.
Welcome to
crazy.
Happens
sports,
every
man.
year.
When you're just
Yeah.
around long enough to see some
Ain't
of
that
these
the
names
truth?
degrade, it's tough.
Yeah, it's true. All right, let's talk about some options now on here on the waiver wire. I'll start off here, Maddie, with the front row. For me, top of the line here, and I would actually drop some fab on this is Ben Sugars. Ben Sugars has gone four
Came
straight
off the bench
weeks
though.
where he started. Pardon?
Came off the bench this week. No,
No,
or did he
started
start?
both
Oh, he started.
matches.
All right, I
Tuesday
like
match
it.
and the weekend match, and he scored above 7 fantasy points. Scored his first try of the year this past weekend. I think Ben Sugars is a guy at only 29% owned. If he's going to start starting there at the LA position, and it should be interesting there though.
Yeah,
Sugars.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, at 29% on, like you said, right, it's pretty tough to not look at him as a guy. 7.6 fantasy points, 12.3 fantasy points. That's what I like to see. I honestly didn't really have too many other guys to really go with. You look around, the only other guy potentially now that we saw the return of Vaca.
Mm.
Maybe we see him consistently started. Yes, I said Old DC isn't going to be as good of a team, but Martin Vaca, he is one thing. I know he's 57% owned, but he's a guy that, 6.4 fantasy points. And when he came off the bench, 7.8 when he started, he could definitely be a guy that continues to start for this team.
All right. We're going to move on here to the second row position here. But before we do, we got to say adios to Devin Vandy Vanderbilt. He's going to be a good civil servant. He's going to be a good civilian. It is election time up in the Great White North. So,
Right.
Vandy, go to the polls, man. And this is, I
Go
guess, a
get him,
nice
big
little
dog.
plug. Whether you're American, whether you're Canadian, hey, do your part in society and make sure you go out and vote. Whoever you may vote for, whoever your political ties may align to, it's always good, and that's what you got to do to make your voice heard here in democracy. There, so
That's right.
whatever
It's your
whatever
job
we
to
know of
vote,
that,
boys. It's your job to vote.
there you go. All
Go
right,
get
well,
him,
Vandy,
big dog.
go get
Peace
it,
and
man.
love, guys.
Proud of you. All right, Maddie, let's continue on here with the second row position. This is a guy I believe I mentioned last week, but I'll say it again because again, no one's listening to us, but it's okay. I'm gonna say Matt Jensen. Second row is a sparse position when there's a guy though that is getting starting minutes, and he's taking over on a team that is pretty solid, and that being the Utah Warriors. I believe, and it seems like that something is happening with Gavin Thornburg in terms of what he's dealing. We haven't seen him, and since a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, he was subbed out early. And it looks like Matt Jensen is the guy that's taking over. 35.3 fantasy points on the season, only 29% owned. Don't expect big things from Jensen. Again, kind of one of those streaming options. If you have, let's say, a Sam Gola this upcoming week with Carolina on bye, just to throw him into your lineup at the lock position, he should get you around 6 to 8 fantasy points, which is solid for second row.
Yeah, and a guy in a very similar vein is Nathan Den Hout. I mean, you look at him right now at 14% owned. He's nothing flashy. He might not even get you 80 minutes, but he's consistently putting up, over 3 or 4 fantasy points a lot of the time. Um, and lately they've been going with a lineup that's been demanding him to play 80 minutes. So he's a nice guy to kind of pick up and stream. But yeah, pretty thin picking in the second row.
Yeah, we're seeing back row version Johan Mumsen, which is making your
We
second
have.
row Johan Mumsen waiver wire pickup from a few weeks ago, as you saying a long-term pickup as something that's looking real spicy right now.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Until he plays one more game and then he's a back row, right?
yeah,
That's the
exactly.
concern.
All right, let's move to the back row. What is this? Our weekly PSA to go pick up Aiden King or what? Because Aiden King,
Yeah. It's just
right?
like every time he's so consistent. Like he's so consistent. And he's constantly coming up. And yes, I know the man of the matches that they have in the games don't mean much, but he's constantly coming up in games where Jonah Mo scores 2 tries. He's the guy that comes up in the man of the match. He's just, even when he doesn't play a full 80 like in the last week, still puts up 12.2 fantasy points. He's just consistent.
Like I get it, right? It's not a flashy play. Is
But that's
Aiden
not what
King
you're
gonna
that's not
get
what you're getting at this time of the
right?
season.
Right. Like, is he gonna give you the potential? We talked about it earlier about that ceiling, right? A Semi Kunatani like performance, or a Sam Tuifua type performance, or a Jonah Mo type performance. No. But this is also a player that for the past 7 weeks straight has got you at least 11 tackles.
Yeah.
And what that means is that he's getting you at least 9 fantasy points every single week. He's not gonna burn you. He's a great player to match up on that lineup. If you got guys that are explosive and you just need a guy that's not going to kill you, he'll get you there. He's not gonna burn you though. So Aiden King, only 43% owned. This is a call out to all of our fantasy MLR managers out there. Like,
It is.
let's get that number at least to above 50% because
Yep.
Aiden King should be owned and should be off of this waiver wire segment for as many weeks as he's been on here. All right, moving on to the scrum half position, Maddie. I'm going to say, and I think this might be a guy that you have also on your list, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. But we talked about how NOLA is finding their step in terms of that lineup that is the most successful, and it looks like Ruben Nahas is that guy. And yes, he's not going to play a whole bunch of minutes for you
He will never play the
because
full game.
right, because Luke Campbell is on the bench there waiting. He's the vice captain, but he gets points, and he gets points more than your average scrum half, right? And however that may be in terms of how he's getting that, may be arguable. But again, 12.6 in round 10, 6 fantasy points this past week. He's now gone 2 straight weeks where he's had above 40 meters gain. The opportunity is there as the NOLA offense is emerging for him to be a contributor to that and to get points here for a guy that's only 14% owned in leagues.
Yeah, and I'll just to bring up another name, Ishmael Safodian. You brought him up last week. Just the way that he plays garners kind of the ability to score fantasy points as a 9, something that we don't see. And he's a guy that likes to run with the ball and likes to kind of kind of find open space and run with it. So every time he started, he scored over 4.9 fantasy points, which is great for a scrum half. And he's 14% owned right now. So if you definitely are in need, he's definitely a play that you can go for.
Yeah, I agree. All right, fly half position. Even more slim pickings. I might say that this is probably the slimmest pickings of all the positions here for options to be out there.
Yeah.
We said Jason Emery last week. Some of you listen, more of you need to listen because if you need a kicker, Jason Emery is going to be that guy for you. 3 conversion kicks, 2 penalty kicks this past week. He is the starting fly half in Old Glory DC. It's not going to be pretty, but he's going to get you around 8 fantasy points every single week. But I get it. It's tough. But it's just kind of the word. It's the best of very few options out there. What more is there to choose on? Like, would you rather
Well, I mean,
Jason
I would go
Emery?
with Dorian Jones maybe, but
Okay.
like Jason Emery, you at least know is going to play a full 80. Like they don't really have anybody else in there. So that's why I would pick Jason Emery over Dorian Jones. Dorian Jones, like they'll always kind of play Luke Carty coming on off the bench, or they'll always play a Reese Botha coming in off the bench, you know? So it's a tough decision to make, but I agree with you, Ryan. I think Jason Emery is the play here if he is available in your league.
It's a classic case of high floor, or a safe floor player versus a higher ceiling player. Like Dorian
Yep.
Jones, he's on a better offense. He has the opportunity to score more points, but is he going to do that in the 60 or 55 minutes that he plays? Jason Emery going to play the full 80, but Old Glory DC may not score a bunch of points for you, and he may not have opportunities to get those points. So what are you going to have there?
Yep.
The other option out there, it's over 50% owned, but
Cheater.
Martin Elias at
Ah, I don't
57% owned.
like it. I don't
It's
love
tough
it.
because
He
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 doesn't have
hasn't
kicking
he hasn't
responsibilities.
taken conversions for the past 5 weeks. I don't think you can take that from a 10.
So if you had to rank it, then Maddie, right
It's
now, it
Jason
would
Emery,
be
Dorian Jones, Martin
Martin
Elias.
Elias. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right, center position now. The guy that I'm going to talk about is a guy that has been kind of sneakily just been doing very well. He's our center 7 on the season, and he's 0% owned, and that's Isaac
Yeah.
Titamaki. Um, we were so high on him heading into the year, right? But he gave you duds after duds after duds because of the way NOLA was playing. But since NOLA has picked it up, he's now gone 3 straight games of scoring a try. He's scored double-digit fantasy points in 3 straight games. And you talk about consistency, like this is what he is fueling into this NOLA Gold lineup. Being a
Yeah.
benefactor of JP Duplessis, he's widely available. He's a guy that could be a nice depth piece on your team here.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at his performances side by side with JP Duplessis, you'll see two guys that are putting up good performances together. Um, and I think he got set up for a try from JP Duplessis in the past game. I think he got set up for a try in round 9 as well by JP Duplessis. So yeah, I like this pick. I think he's going to continue to thrive as long as JP Duplessis is doing well.
You drop Gaffa for Titamaki.
Uh,
That's right on the
that's
cusp for me. That's right.
That's tough
And
because
it's tough because
Tamaki has had his issues too. Like you think, oh, like are you going for 121 point performance that you could possibly get, or are you going for 3 10 point performances that you're getting from Tamaki? Because you're not going to get he has yet to show the ability to put up a 20 plus point performance. But Goffa, it could possibly happen. We've seen it over 2 years.
I guess what I'll say is if you are on the side where you're off the Gaffa train and you're like, you know what, I don't want any piece of Anthem Rugby Carolina. One, you can try to trade him. I don't think many people are going to want to have him on his roster but maybe because of the name value. But this is the week to do it because of the bye week, right? Like if you're gonna hold on to him, like you're gonna do it through this bye week, right? Now is the time to drop him if that's the decision you're gonna make. And Titamaki, I think, is that line for a lot of people out there. All right, back 3 players now, Maddie. Let's talk about it. For me, it's a guy I mentioned last week, as a guy that is this something that we finally buy into? Because I know he's burned you in the past, Maddie, but Paula
Lots.
Belikana, he's the back 3-5 on the year,
Yeah, that's what I was
and
thinking. I was like, how can a back through five be 29% out?
his past 5 week performances only has one single digit performance. He's gone 27.5, 6.6 down week, but then 28.9, 12.9, and then another solid week there with everything there. So, I mean, is it time to buy in?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it, doesn't it? It feels like it, doesn't it? but a guy that I like better because I think he's less try dependent is Duncan Matthews. I mean,
Mm.
Duncan Matthews, you talk about 21% owned. I'm talking about 0% owned Duncan Matthews for a back 3-7. Past 4 weeks, we already talked about him, but like 129 meters gained in the midweek game, 135 meters gained on the weekend game. He seems to be, and they've kind of found a place for him in that lineup, and he seems to be the guy there, and he is looking vintage.
Yeah, and I'll say you called it too, Maddie. You had him on your waiver wire last week. So
Yep.
interesting there. All right. And Maddie, the meta seems to be you don't need a defensive set piece, at least at this point. I will
We
say
haven't
again,
played one since
we are
round two.
we are reworking the scoring numbers so that it will be more valuable to have in the future. But as of right now, it does feel like the extra bench spot is a little bit more valuable. All right, let's head into the week ahead because it is a busy week indeed.
Rucking Rundown.
All right, week 12, Rucking Rundown, full slate of matches, Carolina on bye. We got a midweek clash here starting on Wednesday. Vandy went 5-2 this past week. I went 5-2. Maddie 3-4.
That's
Vandy's right
fine.
now still winning at 35-20 on the season. I am 30-25. Maddie, you're the only one under 500, 24-31. Did you hear me? You're the only one under 500. You got to pick
Say
it up a little
Lovey.
bit.
No, I
Either
don't.
way. So let's see if we can shift that around here. We'll start off on Wednesday. Again, no fantasy implications in this one. So we get to watch this one stress-free, more or less. Vandy may not be as stress-free because this should be a pretty decent matchup if San Diego played the way that they played against RFCLA. Utah hosting San Diego in what should be a pretty fun matchup.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what lineups come out of this. I can see Utah resting mono, um, giving their backs a bit of a rest. I can see only one of D'Angelo Leila or Joel Hodgson playing. I can see Joel Hodgson definitely taking a rest. Um, and San Diego as well. Like I'm curious to see what lineup they put out. So to me, I think I'm gonna go San Diego here.
San Diego on this one. That's a great point there in terms of the lineup changes there. I can already put down Vandy for Utah in this one. I'm going to go
Mhm.
Utah on this one. Hard to bet against the team that is the hottest in the league right now. All right, and then shifting on to the next matchup on Friday, the Seattle Seawolves taking on RFC Los Angeles at home. Seattle picked it up obviously against Anthem, but
Everybody picks it up
RFC.
against Anthem. Uh,
True,
you
fair
know,
enough.
So, and they just lost to NOLA. Yes, they put up a bunch of points. Yes, they look decent. But yeah, I like RCLA in this. I think if you're looking at a kind of guys who are going up against each other and for a bit of a track meet, I think RCLA comes on top when you look at the two offenses.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I'm going LA in this one, Maddie. I can only
Yeah,
assume
LA.
LA in this one. And this is our first fantasy implication game here. I'm starting all my LA guys. I think obviously for the foreseeable future with that, just because of how electric they are, they have a lot of rest. The fact that they were able to do that all right with the stuff there should be good. All right, and then the third matchup here, the New England Free Jacks taking on the Houston Sabercats at home in what is, I would say, outside of one of the hottest teams in the league, in the New England Free Jacks, joining the Utah Warriors. They take on the Houston Sabercats. This is another one that could be a very, very similar kind of MLR championship kind of preview because I could see both these teams being in the final. Houston looks great. New England is rolling very, very well now. Thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it'll be a good matchup. I'm gonna take New England here.
Okay. And I will take Houston in this one because I think that the dynamic play of how they played this past week really, really excites me. And I think New England's been scratching by, but I think Houston can take it to them. All right. Old Glory DC versus the Utah Warriors is the next one. Um, I mean, do we even have to say much about this one? Again, they're
I'll,
coming
I'll
off of a
take
short.
I'll take Utah.
Me too. I'll take Utah on this one too. Short turnaround, but I don't think that's going to be enough to stop them. Old Glory DC is looking like a shell of themselves.
Yep, I agree.
All right, Chicago Hounds, Miami Sharks, second last game of the weekend. I mean, I feel like we're rounding out these last two ones in pretty straightforward matches here. But the Miami Sharks have been looking good. Is it enough though for them to take down a Chicago Hounds team that is motivated, who just got beat by a Utah Warriors squad?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's gonna be tight. Chicago's got a past two pretty tough weeks for them. Um, I'm actually gonna go Miami in this one.
Is that so? Is that actually thinking that they can win, or is that something where you just need to be different than we do?
No, I think they can. I think Miami look like they can move the ball wide really well, and they have a really dynamic attack. I think we've seen Utah take advantage of that, and I think we can see Miami take advantage of that as well.
How much better is this Miami team with Santiago Vidal in the lineup?
Well, I don't even know if it's necessarily that. I mean, they had a game against Anthem, but they even look good with Shane O'Leary in the lineup. I just think that for me, I think the guy's actually Thomas Kubisha. I think that's the guy who drives this back line forward.
Yeah, that would be the shock of the week. So I'm going Chicago, Maddie, you're on Miami, seeing if that
Yep.
goes there. Upset watch in that one. And then lastly, to round out the weekend, San Diego Legion versus the NOLA Gold. The San Diego in their second match of the weekend takes on a fresh NOLA Gold squad. Um, San Diego is at home, but NOLA has been on the upswing. San Diego starting to look better, but they just bounced back from what was a long stretch for them in a win over RFCLA.
Yeah, and they're coming off a midweek game too, so the natural thing would be go to NOLA, but I think I am going to stick with San Diego here to get a
It
win.
does excite me. It does excite me the way that San Diego played in that matchup. And again, I think
Yep.
it's just something that we like to see. And San Diego is a fun team to watch when they're clicking. We'll see. I think not everyone has bought in fully into NOLA yet. Final question before we round it out. If NOLA wins this one, is that when you're completely bought in that this NOLA team is actually a team to be a threat here this season?
I'll never be bought into NOLA being a threat in the season because they continue to disappoint any fans of theirs.
Yeah, no kidding. All right. Well, hey, we got Utah, LA, Houston, Utah, Chicago, San Diego for myself, and then for Maddie, San Diego, LA, New England, Utah, Miami, San Diego for him. We'll cash in Vandy's picks, and we'll see how we do here in this upcoming week. And see how these standings change when it comes to our Rucking rundown. All right, to wrap up the show, let's talk a little bit about the cash.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, it is time for the TFR Betting Challenge presented by Betstamp. Betstamp betting made easy. You can click the link down below to support the show while also cashing in on some free bets at sportsbooks available in your area. You can find the MLR in a variety of sportsbooks that are down there. And yeah, you get some free bets. You can see if you can win some money. And we got some advice for you in terms of what picks we are looking out at. And that in part is due to Maddie giving you his lines
Oh,
of
yeah.
the week. Both of
I don't
us,
know.
before you start, Maddie, I will say we used your lines tips to kind of use that. And last week you said, okay, it's probably going to be LA favored. Well, for some reason, LA came in as the 14 and a half point underdogs to
Makes
New
no
England on that
sense.
Tuesday matchup. Insane. RFCLA was Mandy and myself's cash cow this week. 14 and a half line, underdog, ridiculous. We smashed that. MLR is the place where you're going to find lines like these, I feel like sometimes. And when you do,
Yep.
you hit smash. That was the pick this week. Vandy won 16 bucks. I won 12. Vandy's now up $90 on the season. I'm making my way
A
back
beast.
20,
We're
22
trying.
bucks here. So, Maddie, with that being said, let's talk about some of these lines, starting off with Wednesday, Utah versus San Diego. Interesting one.
Yeah, it's hard to not see Utah as the favorites here. I just see them being favored probably by around 5.5 for this one. So that'll be interesting. Seattle versus RCLA. Again, LA, I know that they were just dogs by 14.5 points in the New England Free Jacks, but I don't think this will be the same against a struggling Seattle side. RCLA is going to be the favorites by, I mean, let's go crazy. I think RCLA might be favored by 10.5 or 12.5. Let's kind of lock it in at 10.5 there. Um, and Free Jacks versus Houston. This one's an interesting one. I think it's really going to be tight. I think the bettors and the books really highly rate the Free Jacks. Um, but I think Houston's going to be favored here by two. Well, I think it's going to be one of those 2.5 point games here, and I think Houston's going to be favored here. I would actually take Free Jacks there. I like that one to take the Free Jacks for that one. As we get into Utah versus Old Glory, Utah again is the clear favorites. I think it's going to be favored by like 14.5 points, similar to this RCLA versus New England Free Jacks. I would potentially think about covering that. That would be an interesting one. If it's anything above 14 points, two tries, I would definitely take that for Old Glory to cover. Um, we look at
And
Chicago, Miami.
is that because of the quick turnaround?
I don't know. I just think that, like, I feel like this one's going to be where they're going to do a weird one. And I don't think Old Glory, yes, they just took a beating by Houston, but I also think Houston's a lot better defensively than
Mm.
Utah. And I
Yeah.
just think Old Glory may be able to put up some points and at least stay within 2 tries. So I like that. And then Chicago versus Miami. Chicago's going to be the favorites here. I think they'll be favored by around like 8.5, let's say 10.5 points. And I can see Miami covering that for sure. Like I can definitely see Miami covering that. It's going to be low scoring. Chicago's going to try to control the game, and I don't think they're necessarily going to try and run away with it. And San Diego versus NOLA. This is kind of interesting to me as I look at this. You would think that San Diego would be favorites. I'm going to say that the books go a little crazy and actually put NOLA as the favorites
Mm.
by 4.5. And I would take San Diego as the underdogs there, and I would take them to cover for sure.
I think when you look at all those and Maddie's unofficial, what do you want to call this? The unofficial
Unofficial, official lines.
Maddie's unofficial official TFR lines. Okay.
Yes.
Again, use these to your favor in terms of this is what Maddie's thoughts about the games are. And when the books release their lines, depending on what their lines compared to these lines, might give you some insight into some unbiased opinions on these
Yeah.
matchups. The one that I get out of all of it, Maddie, is Houston, New England. Whoever is the underdog in that one, I'm taking the underdog, I think.
Yeah. The only thing that I wouldn't take is if it's something dumb like they do in a 1.5 line and it's basically just a money line, then I would just stay away. And then I would kind of look at the Chicago, Miami. I would look at the Utah Glory and I'd look at NOLA San Diego. I'd be interested to see what those 3 lines look like.
Interesting. And there's no Anthem Rugby Carolina this week to disappoint me and not covering a line that I inevitably bet on
Yeah.
them on. All right. Well, that is your TFR betting challenge presented by Betstamp. Vandy right now winning the TFR betting challenge by quite a margin, but we'll see if we can make a comeback with some smart picks here moving for the rest of the season. Again, use that link down below to cash in on some free bets that you can use to bet on MLR at sportsbooks available in your area. Fun little link. It geolocates to where you are, gives you all the sports books that are available in your region. Nice little useful tool, and you get some free bets along with that while also supporting the show. The TFR Betting Challenge presented by Betstamp. All right.
Woo.
Well, Maddie, hey, fun show. Midweek chaos. We got through it. We took a breath in this episode. We reflected, and we're right back at it here in a day's time here with another Wednesday matchup. We're in the thick of the MLR season. Again, keep an eye out for some exciting news and some logistical stuff that we'll figure out when it comes to that final that's happening in June, and a whole much more as we continue to trudge on here towards the home stretch of the Fantasy MLR year.
And wait, man, I think there's some exciting weeks ahead.
Very exciting weeks. All right, for Matt Yee, for Devin Vandy Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee. This is the Fantasy Ruckers, and we'll be back next week with another fun episode. We'll see you then.
We bleed red, bleed MLR.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.